My mother-in-law hit me 3 times in front of 40 people, and when my 6-year-old ran over crying, she looked down at her and said, "Get this trash away from me before she ruins something else." The backyard went dead quiet. Somebody's phone was still playing music from a speaker on the patio table, some upbeat song that didn't match anything happening. My daughter Ava froze mid-step, juice cup still in her hand, red Kool-Aid dripping onto Sandra's white patio stones. My cheek was on fire. I could feel my own pulse in it. Nobody moved to stop her. That's the part one keep coming back to. 2 hours later, Sandra didn't have a family anymore. She didn't have the house. She didn't have the story she'd been telling about herself for 6 years. I didn't plan any of it that morning. I want to be honest about that, because a lot of people are going to assume I walked into that party with some kind of scheme. I didn't. I walked in with a fruit salad and a birthday card. My name's Melissa. I'm 34, I do billing for an orthodontics office in Dayton, and I married Derek 9 years ago. His mother, Sandra, never really liked me, and for a long time I told myself that was normal. Mothers and daughters-in-law don't always click right away. I figured it would soften. It didn't. It just got quieter and meaner, the way some things do when nobody's willing to name it out loud. Derek's dad died 4 years ago. Heart attack, fast, no warning. He left behind a house on Larchmont, paid off, and about $200,000 in life insurance. Sandra got the insurance money outright. The house was more complicated. Derek's dad had put Derek's name on the deed years earlier, some tax thing his accountant recommended, and when Sandra didn't want to deal with refinancing on her own, Derek and I ended up co-signing so she could stay in it without touching her savings. We didn't take a dime of rent. We just wanted her taken care of. I want to say that clearly because it matters later. My name is on that house too. For the first year after Derek's dad passed, things were almost okay. Sandra was grieving, and grief makes people strange, so I gave her room. Then Derek's sister Kayla got engaged, and something in Sandra changed. Kayla had always been the favorite. I'm not saying that to be dramatic. It was just a fact everyone in the family accepted the way you accept weather. But once there was a wedding to plan, it stopped being subtle. Sandra started dropping by unannounced to see Ava and would spend the whole visit on the phone with wedding vendors. She once corrected Ava's manners at my own dinner table, told her real ladies don't reach across the table, while Kayla's kids climbed on the furniture 2 feet away and nobody said a word. Small things. I let them go because Derek would get that tight look on his face whenever I brought it up, like I was asking him to choose, and I didn't want to be the wife who made him choose. The money stuff I found out about by accident, in March. Ava has a college fund that Derek's dad set up before he died, a custodial account, and because of how it was originally structured, Sandra was listed as a co-signer along with me, some leftover paperwork from when Derek's dad opened it and wanted backup in case something happened to us. Derek and I never touched it. I checked the balance every few months out of habit, mostly because it made me feel like Ava's grandfather was still looking out for her. In March, the balance was $4,000 short of what it should have been. I called the bank thinking it was a fee or an error. It wasn't. There'd been a transfer authorized by Sandra 3 months earlier, routed to an account under Kayla's name. Memo line, wedding dress plus alterations. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot for probably 20 minutes before I could make myself drive home. I didn't scream. I didn't post anything. I called Derek at work and told him, and he went quiet in that way he does, and that night he called his mother. She cried. She said she was borrowing it, that she'd put it back before Ava ever needed it for school, that Derek's father would have wanted the family to help each other. She never apologized to me directly. She apologized to Derek for the confusion. We told her it needed to be repaid within 30 days, or we'd be talking to a lawyer about the account. She agreed. She didn't repay it. She started telling people instead. I found out through Derek's aunt that Sandra had been saying I was controlling, that I'd cut her off from her own grandchild's money over a misunderstanding, that I was the reason Derek was distant from his family. She never said what she'd actually done. She just made herself the victim of a story where the villain was me. That's the woman I walked into her 60th birthday party trying to be civil with. The party was at her house, our house, technically, on paper, back patio strung with lights, about 40 people, half of them relatives I only saw at things like this. Kayla was there with her fiancé, showing off wedding photos on her phone to a cluster of aunts. Derek was helping his uncle with the grill. I was watching Ava, who'd found 2 other little cousins to run around with, sticky-fingered and happy in a way that made the whole ugly winter feel far away for about an hour. Then Ava tripped near the patio table and knocked over a glass of red Kool-Aid onto Sandra's outdoor rug, the one she'd had shipped from some boutique place, the one she mentioned the price of at least twice a month. Sandra was there in about 4 seconds, snatching the cup out of Ava's hand hard enough that Ava's face crumpled. I got there right after, already reaching for napkins, already saying we'd clean it up. It's just a rug, it's fine. It is not fine, Sandra said. Do you have any idea what this cost? I'll pay to have it cleaned, I said. Sandra, she's 6. It was an accident. Everything is always an accident with you people. I didn't understand the sentence right away, you people, and I think that confusion is the only reason I didn't just walk away right then. I asked her what that meant. She told me to watch my tone. I told her I didn't have a tone. I had a kid who needed an apology, not a lecture about a rug. That's when she slapped me. The first one landed before I even registered her hand moving. The second and third came fast, almost automatic, like something in her had just been waiting for permission. My ear was ringing. Somewhere behind me I heard someone gasp, heard Derek's uncle say her name sharp, like a warning, but nobody grabbed her arm. Nobody stepped between us. 40 people, and the yard just went still, the way people go still when they don't know whose side they're supposed to be on. Ava started crying and ran to me, wrapping herself around my leg, and Sandra looked down at her, at my 6-year-old, crying, sticky, scared, and said the thing about trash. I didn't hit her back. I want to say that plainly because people always ask. I picked Ava up and I looked at Sandra and I said, "You will never speak to my daughter again." My voice didn't shake, which surprised me, because everything else in me was shaking. Derek came around the side of the house right as I said it, saw my face already turning red along the cheekbone, and I watched something in him break open that had been sealed shut for years. He didn't yell. He walked straight to his mother and said, "Did you hit her?" Sandra said I'd provoked her. She said I always provoke her. Derek asked again, flatter this time. "Did you hit her?" She wouldn't apologize for the rug, Sandra said, like that was an answer. Derek's uncle, his dad's brother, a quiet man named Ron who I don't think I'd heard say more than 10 words to me in 9 years, stepped forward and said he saw the whole thing, and he wasn't going to pretend he hadn't. A cousin had it on video, actually, from when she'd been filming Ava and the other kids running around the yard. She hadn't meant to catch it. She just had. That's when I remembered the money. I don't fully know why it came out then, in front of everyone, standing there with my face throbbing and my daughter shaking against my shoulder. Maybe because I'd spent months being told to keep the peace, to not make it a bigger deal, to think about the family, and I was done being the only one keeping anything. While we're airing things out, I said, "You should probably tell everyone what happened to Ava's college fund." Sandra's face did something I'd never seen it do before. It went blank, then careful. "That's not something we need to discuss here," she said. "You transferred $4,000 out of your granddaughter's account to pay for Kayla's wedding dress," I said. "In December. I have the bank statement. I did have it on my phone, saved as a photo since March, because some part of me had known I might need it someday. I didn't plan to use it that day. I'm not going to pretend I did. But I pulled it up and I held the phone out, and Ron took it and read it, and I watched him hand it silently to Derek's aunt, who read it and went very quiet. Kayla said it wasn't a big deal, that Sandra was going to pay it back. Sandra said the same thing. She was going to pay it back. This was a family matter. Why was I trying to embarrass her at her own birthday? "You slapped me 3 times and called my daughter trash," I said. "I think you embarrassed yourself." Nobody argued with that. Ron drove me and Ava to urgent care, mostly so there'd be something documented. My cheek had a mark, nothing serious, but he said it plainly, in his quiet way, "You don't just let something like that go unrecorded." Derek followed in his own car after telling his mother, in front of everyone, that she wasn't welcome at our house until she'd made this right, not apologized in the vague, performing way she was good at, but actually made it right. I filed a police report that evening, not because I wanted Sandra arrested, but because I wanted a record that existed outside of family memory, which has a way of softening things over time until the person who did the hitting becomes the person who was misunderstood. The officer who took the report was kind about it. He asked if I wanted to press charges. I told him I wanted to think about it, and for now I wanted it on file. The house was the part that actually changed her life. Derek and I talked that night, after Ava was finally asleep, ice pack traded for concealer, and we agreed we weren't willing to keep our names on a mortgage for someone who'd hit me in front of our daughter and stolen from our child. It wasn't revenge, or it didn't feel like revenge to either of us. It felt like the natural end of something we should have ended a long time ago. Derek called a real estate attorney 2 days later. Because Derek's name was the original one on the deed, and mine had been added when we co-signed the refinance, Sandra didn't have sole ownership to fall back on. She had lived there rent-free on our signature for 4 years. The attorney explained our options plainly. We could give her a window to buy us out, or we could initiate a sale. Derek gave her 90 days and put it in writing, certified mail, no ambiguity left for her to reshape into a different story. She tried, for a while, to make it about me again. She called Derek's aunt saying I was punishing her for a misunderstanding, that Derek was under my influence. But the video existed. The bank statement existed. The police report existed. And Ron, who had never involved himself in anything before, quietly told the extended family what he'd actually witnessed, without embellishment, in the flat voice of someone who'd simply had enough of pretending not to see things. She couldn't buy us out. 90 days later, the house went up for sale. Sandra moved into a 2-bedroom rental across town and paid for it herself for the first time in 4 years. Kayla's wedding still happened. I wasn't invited, which I expected and honestly didn't mind. Derek went for 2 hours, mostly to see his sister, and left before the toasts. He and his mother still speak, occasionally, mostly logistics, a birthday card mailed instead of a visit, a phone call twice a year. It's not warm. It's not meant to be. He told me once that he spent years being the buffer between the two of us, trying to keep everyone comfortable, and it cost him the ability to see clearly what was actually happening in front of him. He doesn't do that anymore. When his mother tries to bring up what happened at the party, like it's still up for debate, he tells her plainly that the conversation is over unless she wants to talk about repayment. She paid back the $4,000 in installments because we told her we'd pursue it legally otherwise. The last payment cleared in June. Ava doesn't ask about her grandmother much. Once, a few months after, she asked why we don't go to Grandma Sandra's house anymore, and I told her the truth in a way a 6-year-old could hold, that Grandma Sandra had been unkind to Mommy and unkind to her, and that in our family, we don't keep spending time with people who are unkind, no matter who they are. She thought about that for a second and said okay, and went back to her drawing. Kids accept boundaries a lot more easily than adults do if you give them a reason instead of a performance. I think about that yard sometimes, the music still playing, the red Kool-Aid on white stone, 40 people standing frozen like the whole scene had been paused. For years I'd made myself smaller in that family because I thought that was the price of peace. What I learned, standing there with my daughter shaking against my leg, is that peace bought with silence isn't peace. It's just quiet. And I was done being quiet in exchange for nothing. Sandra lost a house that was never really only hers to lose. What she actually lost was the version of herself she'd spent years building, the wronged matriarch, the woman everyone protected without asking why. That story only worked as long as nobody said the truth out loud in a yard full of witnesses. I said it. And I haven't been quiet since.